Hi guys, welcome to the 30th episode of Daily Word Webs to Build a Cat. In this episode, we'll stick to the same route that we discussed last time because there are many words that come from this route. It's one of the most, prevalent routes. One of the more, if not most, at least definitely more prevalent routes in the English language. And yeah, what dictum do you live by, right? So, which in this dictum in this context means a general principle that people live by. Okay, right. For example, people who believe in honesty might live by the dictum of honesty is the best policy. Okay, so let's start. So as I said, though, guys, the root dict stands for saying something or declaring something, and it has its origin in the Latin language. There are other similar roots, locu or locet. Something I think we did discuss these roots in the earlier episodes. They also they stand for saying something. Okay, so let's start with the words now. one of the in one of the I think initial chapters हमें सिखाया जाता है कि every sentence has a subject and a predicate है ना. So a predic subject is basically, like for example, if you have the sentence Hermione reads mystery novels, then Hermione will become your subject, right? Karta jo kar raha hai, who's doing the action, and the rest of the sentence, including the verb, becomes the predicate, right? So Hermione reads mystery novels. So reads mystery novels. This will become your predicate. And interestingly, the meaning of the word predicate kind of relates to what this predicate here is doing actually, right? Predicate आपका आता है. The second part dictate comes from dict, which means to say or declare, and the first part pre simply stands for beforehand. Okay, it comes from the root PREA, which stands for beforehand, and yes, it's Latin in Latin, right? So in beforehand. So etymologically, it might seem to mean that a predicate is basically something that tells you about the subject beforehand. However, इसका जो meaning है वो evolve होके it is just being distilled down to saying that predicate is simply something that tells you or something that declares something about the subject, right? Not necessarily beforehand, because sometimes the subject might come later, or might come in the later part of the sentence. So yeah, so that's how the meaning of this word has evolved. That's predicate. Another word that sounds similar to predicate is predicament. However, the meaning is quite different. A predicament is basically a difficult or a puzzling or kind of an embarrassing situation for someone, right? And again, it comes from the same roots. The second part obviously comes from dict, and PRE obviously comes from your what do you say, stands for beforehand. So आपको अच्छा, from this you must have heard of the word predictions, right? Prediction is basically to say or declare something beforehand कि ये होने वाला है. To predict something is to tell of a future event beforehand. So predictions in the earlier ages, in the earlier times, usually used to be of kind of a negative nature. Generally बहुत सारे predictions जो हुआ करते थे वो थोड़े से would not be very auspicious, right? Would be more about कि नहीं अभी ये हो जाएगा, ये war हो जाएगी, प्रलय आ जाएगी, or something on those lines, and hence predicament ended up getting a negative connotation. So a predicament is basically a situation which is kind of not desirable. It's kind of difficult or puzzling or kind of an embarrassing situation. So if you're stuck in a predicament, that means you're stuck in a between a rock and a hard place, right? So either kuwa, udhar khai, something like that. So it's a predicament for you, not necessarily a dilemma. Huh? By the way, dilemma can be considered a predicament, but they are not. These are not terms that are always used interchangeably. Dilemma is more specific. Okay, predicament can simply be any puzzling situation which might not necessarily pose as a dilemma. Okay, so that's about predicament. Let's go to the next term, which is abdicate. Now, abdicate, the second part of this term obviously comes from dict, which stands for say or declare. The first part, ab, actually stands for away. Okay, ab का मतलब यहाँ पे होता है away. So abdicate is, the meaning of the word is that especially for a public official is to step down from a position of power, right? So मान लीजिए कोई minister है or maybe some officer of the government, of a government body, kind of steps down from his position. That means you can say that they have abdicated their office, right? That means they're essentially, what they're doing is they're declaring that they are stepping away from their position. Okay, they're declaring that they are stepping away from their position. So that's how you can think about this. The root obviously means away, right? So okay, so abdicate is that. Let's move on to the next term, which is edict. What would be edict? Edict is basically E obviously comes from the part which means to say out, edict. Okay, an edict is basically a proclamation of or official order that is issued by some authority. So as to mean to say, that etymologically इसका मतलब ये हो जाएगा to declare something out in the open, right? To declare something for everyone in the public openly कि नहीं ये करना allowed नहीं है, या फिर these are the rules which are being put into place, you need to follow these. So generally a proclamation or kind of an official order that is issued by some authority out in the open, right? So edict stands for that. Let's come to the next term, which is vindictive. Vindictive, guys, it basically derives from the expression, the Latin expression, which is vim dicere. Okay, obviously the dicere part relates to say something or declaring something. The vim part is actually again in turn derived from vis, which basically stands for force. Okay, so that means अगर आप literally देखेंगे, so vim dicere or vis dicere would basically stand for to say something forcefully. But over the years, this like I think vindicere evolved into the term vindicta, 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 which ended up meaning like, so to say something forcefully का मतलब बदल के हो गया to proclaim authority, right? To show authority. If you're saying something forcefully, if you're declaring something forcefully, you are essentially proclaiming authority or your dominance over something. And eventually the meaning of vindicta this changed into actually getting revenge, right? You can see how drastically meanings of words can change over time, over long periods of time. And now vindictive simply means to be vindictive is basically to show a strong intent to seek revenge. अगर किसी से बदला लेने की जुनून है किसी में, so that means they are showing vindictive tendencies. Okay, so that's vindictive, coming from vindicta, which came from vim dicere, which came from vis. Vim came from vis, force. Okay, so that's about vindictive. The next term that we have here is indict. Indict basically means a kind of a court order that forbids someone from doing something. So the term that you can see here, that is the first part of this is inter, which simply stands for between, right? And dict stands for a declaration in this case. That means an interdiction, or to interdict an interdiction actually is something that comes in between the way of committing or continuing an activity. जो चीज कोई बीच में कोई आड़े आती है उसको, an indictment is basically a court order that is forbidding someone from doing something, right? So by the way, not indictment, it's interdict. To interdict is to bring in a court order to that forbids someone from doing something. That will be interdict for you. Okay. By the way, another term that we can derive from dict is, which you would have never guessed probably, is addiction. In fact, addiction also comes from the same root dict, which means to say something or to declare something. And again, this is a very good example of how words, the meaning of words evolves over time, right? So now addiction ke andar, the dict part obviously stands for saying or declaring something, and the ad part actually stands for to, or rather say towards something, right? So a person who's kind of an addict, or who kind of has an addiction, kind of has a habit of always saying yes, or always declaring their propensity to use towards a certain type of substance or towards a certain type of activity, right? वो हमेशा उसमें हाँ ही बोलते हैं. That's exactly, and I know it sounds, it doesn't sound very, what do you say, believable in a way, in a sense, but that's how the meaning of this word has evolved. So an addiction is basically a case where a person is not able to say no, is always kind of for or towards a certain activity or a substance, right? So that's addiction for you. So predicament, prediction, predict, abdicate, addict, and vindictive, interdict, and addiction finally. So that's about the words for today. At this point, guys, you can pause the video and go through the sentence usages of these words, by going through these sentences that have been listed here. And as you can see, these have been sourced from some reliable sources. The credits have been mentioned here. Okay, so you can do that. Here you can again pause the video and test yourself. You just need to find the correct order of sentences which have been shuffled, so that the right sentence, is along with the right word. The words are fixed on the left side. You can also attempt this test via a Google form, the link to which has been provided in the description. So guys, here's the summary of the roots and words that we studied on a primary and secondary basis. What you can do is you can pause the video if you want and try to recall the meaning of these roots and the words that we discussed in the session today. So guys, so far as my profile and credentials are concerned, मैंने उसके लिए अलग से एक वीडियो यहाँ पे बना दिया है जिससे कि हर बार 2-3 मिनट इसमें ज़ाया ना करने पड़े. फिर भी अगर आपको शॉर्ट में रीड करना है तो यहाँ पॉज करके यू कैन रीड ऑल ऑफ दिस कंटेंट अबाउट मी. But if you go to the video, you'll also get to see the reviews of the courses that I've conducted on other platforms in the past, right? So go on and check that out if you want. So that's about that, and यहाँ पे this link will take you to the next video, and this should take you to the very first video of the series if you're new to the session. Okay, so that's about it. See you in the next one.